for those of you, most of us know each other, I'm Catherine Haskins. And tonight, because I am not a cat owner, I am a former cat owner and I love my cats. We are going to turn this over to Shannon. As you guys all will know, she is a registered and licensed veterinary technician. She's with the Bridge Club. And so she is going to be helping ask the questions of our two amazing guests, which I will bring up un momento. But I want to be sure that tonight, ask all the questions you possibly have. Dr. Cheryl, wave your hand, Miss Dr. Cheryl, who will have probably a special guest passing by her computer at times, because there hasn't been a meeting I've ever been in with Dr. Cheryl where it hasn't come past her
They're
screen.
passed out behind me right now.
So if your cats are around, they are completely welcome to this conversation. The more the merrier. We love to have the cats on board. And that includes the idea that Shannon too, because how many cats do you have in the house, Shannon?
Three.
Yes.
3. Went from 0 to 3.
Which is awesome. I'm going to ask everybody to mute their lines at this point, except for our two guests and Dr. Cheryl and Shannon as we go forward. So first and foremost, we have Dr. Ann Ward. And so I want to be sure that everyone is also aware that tonight's conversation, we are so lucky that Royal Canin has been supporting us as we have been bringing these conversations forward to you. And so both Dr. Ann Ward and Katie Hartley are both from Royal Canin. So listen, you got questions about their food? Can also ask those, but we'll keep those more to the back end as we're going through it all. But what I love about Dr. Ann is she is the this is a title, get ready. So she is the Scientific Communications Veterinarian. And so for Royal Canin, she's in Washington State. How do you pronounce the city, Dr. Ann?
Issaquah. I know it's a tongue twister, huh?
That is. She is a graduate from Cornell, so she's a smarty pants. We're just going to call it out because it's very, very true. And so she has 2 cats, 3 dogs, and 3 horses. And she will also brag on what an amazing practitioner she is within veterinary medicine, because we only bring the best here at all times. So you're like, but wait, why is Royal Canin talking about behavior? Like, I'm not quite understanding, but because we have Katie Hartley with us. And so she is also with Royal Canin by day, but she's a feline trainer by night. What? So this is super cool because she is going to, and okay, you say you're self-proclaimed, I don't know how to pronounce this word, Katie.
Allophile.
Allophile. New word for the day.
Yeah, there's your 10
That word can't be on Wordle. Too many letters. Thank heavens. And so she has been a cat lover for a record. I don't know. See if any of you can beat it. 37 years. Who can beat it? Anyone? Raise your hand. I don't know. I think probably Dr. Diane can. But that's awesome sauce. So I absolutely love it. So she's got, you've got 3 cats, right? No, 2 cats. 2 cats is what she's got on her list. So what we're going to, see, first guest of the night. That's what I'm talking about.
Here he is.
So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to turn this on over to Shannon, and we're going to start. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Let's first start with our toast with Dr. Ward. And then what we will do is move on with the questions. So Dr. Ward, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you all out there in our audience and in this conversation tonight, I should say, for joining this evening. I'm really excited to be here, and I love what I do at Royal Canin, because at Royal Canin, we really are committed to making a better world for pets. And so in that spirit, for our opening toast this evening, I would all like us to raise a paw, or, if you did take Catherine's advice and bring your favorite beverage with you this evening, raise a glass, and let's pledge to make a better world for cats by respecting their unique environmental needs.
Cheers to that. I love that. So, and again, reminder, you're all muted on purpose, and that is purely so that we can keep the conversation going. Move everything over into the chat. This way we can have the best time ever. And again, we were going to bring just a few more puns as we go through the process, but Shannon,
I love a good cat pun.
I do love the cat puns too.
Yeah, but yeah, keep your questions coming in the chat. We will try to kind of keep an eye on that and answer ones as we're going along, but also we have some time at the end, hopefully, to answer questions too. But we could talk about cat behavior probably for hours and hours. So obviously this won't be a complete comprehensive talk, but we've got some important info. So I think I just want to start kind of right at the beginning and with the big question, why is it important to understand feline environmental needs?
Shannon, that is a really, really great question. And I think it's important for us to understand that in cats, behavioral health is really intimately linked to physical health. And believe it or not, there are actually studies that have shown that environmental stress or failure to meet the environmental needs of the cat can precipitate sickness behaviors like vomiting or inappropriate elimination. There's also this really important human element behind the need to understand feline behavior and environmental needs as well. And this is because it's easy for us as cat owners to misinterpret normal feline behavior like scratching or climbing on the countertops as, nuisance behavior. And we think our cat is being naughty when really what's happening is that this cat is simply being a cat and doing what cats do. And so our cats need appropriate outlets to engage in normal behavior. So really the reason this is important is that if we address the cat's environmental needs, we provide acceptable outlets for normal behaviors, we can then reduce unwanted behavior, we can reduce illness, we can strengthen that cat to human bond, we can reduce stress in multi-cat households, and ultimately, of course, we can have happier, healthier cats. And one thing that I wanted to point out as we get the conversation started tonight is that we do have a great resource at Royal Canin. It's a one-page document that summarizes feline environmental needs as set forth by experts at the American Association of Feline Practitioners. And so I'm hoping we can share that link for folks in the chat box who may be interested in using that as a reference as we go through tonight's talk.
Absolutely. It's already there. So that way people will get access to it.
Fantastic. Thank
It's a
you.
lot. There's a lot there. So I think you'll like it.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask too, I know we will get into a little bit more about, specifics of their environmental needs, but let's kind of, take a little step back because I know there's been some buzz in the veterinary community. And there's a few, big authorities that we think of in terms of cats and cat research. But there is a thing called the 5 pillars of a healthy cat environment. So can we explain a little bit more about what those are, why they're important, and then we'll kind of break it down so that we can talk about more specifics.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the veterinary space, we're really lucky to have 2 fantastic organizations, the American Association of Feline Practitioners, as well as ISFM, which is an international organization, who have worked together to take this really complex topic, feline environmental needs, and distill it into 5 pillars that are easy to understand. And it's really important that we understand this. It's really essential that we understand these needs because cats are quite stoic. And so it can actually be very hard to spot signs of stress until the cat is really in a crisis. And there are some pretty startling statistics that underscore this. So for example, inappropriate elimination is something that's a leading cause of feline relinquishment to shelters. And we know that unfortunately in the US, over 500,000 cats each year end up euthanized in shelters because there just aren't enough homes for all of these cats. We also have to consider that stress can cause true urinary tract disease in cats. And urinary obstruction, I'm previously an emergency room clinician. Urinary obstruction is actually a leading reason that cats present to emergency rooms in the United States. So it's not just important we understand the environmental needs, the cat's life literally may depend upon it. And that's why AAFP and ISFM have come together to develop this really nice set of guidelines based on what they're calling the 5 pillars. And so when we think about, really at a high level, what are these 5 pillars? The first pillar is to provide a safe space. And critically, this means a safe space from the perspective of the cat. So we have to think about things through the eyes of the cat. The second pillar is going to be to provide multiple and separate key environmental resources. So think about things like food bowls, litter boxes, beds, those hiding places, etc. The third pillar is going to be to provide our cats with opportunities for both play and predatory behavior. Fourth pillar actually is one of my favorites because I think it's really obvious, but it's also really easy for us to overlook in our busy lives. And this is to simply provide positive, predictable human interaction to our cats. And then the 5th pillar is to provide an environment that respects the cat's sense of smell.
So first of all, I'm just going to point, because Carol said that she was thinking about, getting a cat. What I love is there's a lot to think about in a good way with the benefit of a cat. There's an opportunity to learn so much about your pet instead of just going from a behavior of having a dog and going, I know what I'm supposed to do. So the learning alone can be a lot of fun, and it's new discovery, and they're going to show and teach you a lot as you go along. But the idea that you're going to look at those 5 pillars is really critically important. So sorry, little editorial there, since we know Carol's looking at potential.
Oh yeah, but I absolutely agree with you. That's a really important call out.
Yeah. Okay. So should we just start kind of breaking it down and diving into each of these a little bit more? Start with number 1, providing a safe space. What exactly does that mean for a kitty in our house?
Absolutely. I know it's hard. You're thinking to yourself, well, isn't my house safe? It's safe for me. Is it safe for my cat? So again, it really comes down to thinking about it from the perspective of the cat. And, I think you and I probably often think of cats as predators, but we have to also remember that cats are also prey. And a really important coping mechanism for cats who feel threatened or stressed is to hide. And so providing a safe space in a very, very simple sort of fundamental level means providing hiding places, but really it goes a bit beyond that. We're talking about providing them multiple safe places throughout the home where they can rest and where they have privacy and security. So the cat needs to feel private and secure if they need to withdraw from the busy home environment. Now, if there are multiple cats, of course, we need to have as many safe places as cats or more. One thing that I really like to recommend to clients when I was in the clinic is that one of our safe places for our cats in the home can be a soft-sided carrier with a removable roof that can be put somewhere quiet for the cat to use as a bed. And not only will this feel secure to the cat, but it also will make them more comfortable with the carrier when it's time to go to the vet later on, because they're already used to it and associate it with that comfort and security. And I think it's also really important when we think about these safe spaces that, unlike people who, at least I know for me, I tend to look around me and perceive my living space in terms of the square feet of floor space that I have surrounding me. But cats live in a vertical world. Cats really love being elevated so that they can observe their surroundings. And so providing a safe space also means providing a cat with those opportunities to climb and perch. So that means putting cat trees in your home or installing purposeful cat shelves in different locations in your home, cat perches. Think about a series of cat shelves and a perch under a sunny window. And that is really maximizing that vertical space. So we don't have to have a huge home or a huge apartment to create this safe space for the cat if we're using those vertical spaces effectively. And, one other point around this use of vertical space and the concept of safe spaces is that, I know we all sometimes get frustrated when our cats jump onto our kitchen counters or up onto our table or cabinets. But if we haven't provided acceptable alternatives for normal climbing and perching behavior, it's actually going to be inevitable that our cats are going to do these things.
So first and foremost, we all need to redecorate our houses. That's what I heard. I gotta go do that. I'm just kidding. But
it's an opportunity, right?
It's an opportunity. And I think,
fun.
I love the shelves because I've seen those, and you see more of them in veterinary hospitals these days than you've ever seen before, as the idea that they can climb on them. But if you are looking, and maybe we could go to the, home, HGTV and get a cat decorating show. It would be fantastic. So we could all really show people how they can make it look super cool. So I do love it. I had never heard that they are prey as well. And so that provides a whole new perspective on the why they need to be high and also the why they need the places. And I think if we understand the why, it helps us understand their needs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great
And can I just add a quick side note too about the shelves and cat trees? Because I've had clients who say, oh, I don't want this big cat tree. It's so big and ugly. I feel like there are so many products now that you can find something that matches your decor and people won't even know that, oh, that's for the cats. Or, you can have books on this corner and space for the cat over here. So just know that, whatever you want is out there these days. So
Absolutely. There are so many opportunities to get creative and to, really use your cat-friendly home as a way to also be creative with your home decor. I've
Yeah.
seen some amazing examples of that searching around at various online retailers. So definitely, I encourage you guys to follow your curiosity and go look for those items that really match your home decor.
There's, so many options now.
And I have a quick question too. I know it comes up a lot where you had said, like one of the safe spaces in your home could be their cat carrier, but a lot of cats are afraid of their carriers because they, go in the carrier and then go on a scary car ride and scary vet visit. Any quick and dirty tips on how we can sort of change the cat's outlook on that so that it becomes a safe place?
Absolutely. So cats learn by association. So we want that carrier to be associated with a positive experience for the cat, which means that it does need to be out in the home all the time with a favorite blanket. Hopefully we're not washing the blanket too often because we want that cat's scent on the blanket, because that's also something that helps them feel more secure. And if they're utilizing that carrier all the time, we're occasionally throwing really yummy treats in that carrier, they're using it as a bed, it's now going to be associated as something positive in their life. And when you happen to zip the roof onto that soft-sided carrier to take them to the vet, that's really the unusual situation. They're still associating that carrier with positive things. So it's really going to reduce the stress of the visit for the cat.
Okay. And I didn't see any other questions.
I thought Valerie's was good. I thought Cheryl did a good job of answering Valerie's question, but the question is that high space thing as we get senior cats, really wanted to make sure that if they are having trouble going high, how we can make sure that we're still finding those hiding places. So I think Cheryl did a good job in answering.
Well, and sometimes too, well, she was talking more about balance issues. The senior cats, you can actually, build some sort of ramps and they could walk up to a higher spot. But if there's a balance issue, then you want to use a lower kind of, cave-like hiding place that they feel comfortable in going into.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've even done spaces like, just baby gate places off so that, well, it doesn't necessarily help from another cat, but if you've got a dog or something, then only the cat can fit through that area so that they feel safe and secure away from the other
smart.
pets.
Oh, I love that. That's smart.
And I think that the one other thing to consider, these are all really great recommendations, is if any of you do have senior cats, try to keep in mind that where their safe space might be today, that might not be their safe space tomorrow as they get older. 90% of cats over 12 years of age have arthritis, whether we recognize it or not. More oftentimes we don't, because they're so good at hiding pain. So if you do have a senior kitty, make sure that they have a little help getting up to those higher surfaces where they want to, as long as it's safe for them to do so. But like Dr. Good mentioned, like with the ramp, they also make little kitty stairs. And you can find new places for them to still be able to get up off of the ground and maybe not have to like really jump up anywhere. So like one thing I did with my cat, he was almost 18, and I would put a nice fluffy blanket on the back of the couch, so that's a little bit up for him, but it wasn't hard for him to get up there. So just kind of thinking about how you can make it even easier for your senior kitties to get and safely to get up off of the ground. They sure will appreciate that. So just a little something to add.
Excellent.
I love that.
Okay, well, let's keep moving. So pillar number 2 was to provide multiple and separated key environmental resources. So what do we mean by, I guess, first of all, environmental resources, but then multiple and separate?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do we mean by this? Well, when we're talking about key environmental resources, they're the things that the cat really needs to go about their day-to-day life. So you can think of things like a litter box, a food bowl, a water bowl, a scratching post, the cat tree so they can get elevated, cat food, of course, that would be a key resource as well. All of these are things that every cat needs every day. And oftentimes when we're, excited about getting a new cat, for example, we have this shopping list and we go out and we get one of each of these things, and we're forgetting when we get one of each of these things that one really is not enough. We really need multiples of each key resource, particularly if we are in a multi-cat household. And if we, look to the cat behavior experts out there, they recommend that every cat should really have a choice amongst these key resources, and that the resources be placed in different areas of the home. So that's where the separation piece comes into play. It's really critical, because from a cat's perspective, if you have 2 litter boxes, but they're next to each other in the same room, this is the same thing as having one toileting area from the cat's perspective. So it really does matter where we place these resources. And so this means that for a single cat household, we'd really like to have at least 2 litter box locations, 2 feeding areas, 2 water stations, at least 2 scratching areas, at least 2 resting or perching or hiding areas. All of this would really be ideal for creating that environment that's friendly to the cat. And then for multi-cat households, what we recommend is at least 1 key resource per cat plus 1 extra. So for example, if you have 3 cats, then we'd ideally want 4 different options for all of these key resources, so that none of the cats are really forced to timeshare the resources. There's always an open resource for any cat who needs one, regardless of what the other cats are doing. And meeting these environmental needs really becomes even more critical if you're coping with some type of problem behavior at home, like inappropriate elimination. But ideally, we aren't going to let our cats get to this crisis point to begin with, because if we're meeting their environmental needs, we're going to be much, much less likely to find ourselves in a situation in which we're trying to correct unwanted behavior. So a lot of the unwanted behaviors that we hear about in the vet clinic from clients are actually a result of us not meeting those environmental needs properly for the cat.
So what you're saying is they're kind of demanding. They want extra stuff.
They know what they want.
The best of everything. No, I'm just kidding, but it's true. It's important. That's what they teach us, right? They tell us what they need to have, but that's what makes them so special, is that they have special demands. Just like we have 2 refrigerators, they just want multiple places for food. So
I appreciate that.
From us, not really.
I have some real life examples I'll pepper in here for you guys that already have cats or thinking about getting cats for Carol. So at one point in my home, I had 2 17-year-old Siamese brothers, and then I unexpectedly added a 1-year-old female to the mix. So I had 2 pans in the basement, separate areas for the boys, and that worked fine for them. They were very low key. However, when Xena came along, I had to relocate resources, just like we're talking about here. So I added a pan to the first floor and the second floor. And since Xena thought she owned the ones in the basement, she would sometimes follow the boys down and then hide under the stairs until they were finished, at which point she would sabotage them as they approached the stairs. So it was really rude. Lucky for me, the boys were really easygoing, like I said, and they did start using the other pans that I'd put versus urinating inappropriately, because really that was their other option. And I'm really thankful that they didn't choose that. So some of you guys might be thinking litter pans on every floor, gross. But what I will say to that is that the potential alternative is much worse. So for me, my biggest frustration, and you guys might be able to relate to this, was the tracking of the litter, the scoopable litter on the main floor and on the floor with the bedrooms. So for those 2 pans, I actually chose a different kind of litter, a recycled newspaper that didn't really track. So this way the cats had options, both in litter type and where they went to the bathroom. So lucky for me, that worked out. And there's lots of options now with litter and litter pans. And I know you guys will find a solution that works for everybody involved. And one more shout out for our senior kitties. As the discomfort of arthritis sets in, it's going to be difficult for them to step over a high-sided litter pan, and it can be very painful. And again, they hide their pain, so we don't necessarily see that. So what you might see, though, is they start going just outside the litter box. So that can be something to take into consideration. And it can also be hard for them to get into the normal position for passing urine and or stool. So this can result in urine or stool actually making its way just outside the side of the pan. So one solution that I found worked for my senior boys was a litter pan that had 3 high sides. So if they were up a little bit in their positioning, it didn't make its way outside of the pan. So 3 sides were high and then 1 side was low. So it made it easy for them to get in and out while still providing that extra level of coverage for the walls and the floors and what have you. So just some examples of how that might work in real life.
No, love that. Love, love, love.
Good.
Yeah, Katie, your examples are great. You've done such a magnificent job in your multi-cat household, navigating all of those resources and navigating the introduction, of Xena to the senior kitties and so on. So thank you so much for sharing those. And, you're talking about Xena ambushing the senior guys got me thinking about a really great video that I know you are familiar with as well, called Friend or Foe, that helps you sort of interpret your cat's behavior with other cats in the household in terms of, are they friends or are they just sort of, getting along or time sharing their resources? Are they truly friends, or are they really just kind of like enemies who tolerate one another? So we're going to share that in the chat box. And yes, frenemies.
It's in there. So
yeah.
for those of you, like, I would copy that, making sure that you have it, but I'll also make sure that we include that link when we send out the video for those of you who want to watch it back again. But yeah, it's in there for you.
Awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
That's such a great video.
And it's YouTube. Who doesn't get sucked into YouTube? All of us.
No, I'm gonna watch it later for sure.
Well,
Okay.
my kids certainly do.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move on to pillar number 3, provide an opportunity for play and predatory behavior.
Yeah, this is a good one. Cats are predators, and in the wild, we know they're going to spend a really large part of their day engaged in hunting behavior. But of course, our domestic cats are being fed by us. And when we provide food to our domestic cats, we are meeting their nutritional needs with that food. But our modern day feeding practices really aren't taking into account that behavioral need for predatory behavior, unless, of course, we get really creative with our strategies to engage that cat. So, for our indoor kitties in particular, this means we need to provide play, and we also can think about feeding time as an opportunity to provide stimulation and engagement, and try to mimic what they would normally get from hunting. So one way that you might think about doing this in your home is dividing the daily ration of food into multiple smaller bits and hide that food in various locations throughout the home so that the cat actually has to wander about and essentially forage for their food. We can also set aside part of the daily ration and use it to play a kibble toss game with the kitty so that they can chase that kibble, pounce, and then consume it and complete that pouncing sort of predatory play cycle. And of course, we can think about using things like puzzle feeders or feeding toys as well to engage the kitty during feeding time. And then, of course, in addition to all these fun things you can do to make feeding both a source of nutrition and a source of satisfying this behavioral need, you can also, of course, engage in regular play with your kitty using something like a feather wand or another favorite toy that actually allows that cat to pounce and capture something. And this really is a very important part of our daily routine with our cats to keep them healthy and happy. And I know Katie probably has some examples from her home as well, because she's, again, just such a wealth of knowledge about these types of things.
So just a real quick question though, this play increases that human animal bond, right? So the more you play, so before we go further, I just want to make sure that as, especially for those of us who may think the cats are like, standoffish, this is how you create that bond, correct? Or am I?
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And actually, my favorite example from my own personal life is that earlier this year, I adopted some feral kittens. I have a horse barn on my property, and these kittens were feral and needed a safe place to live. And I thought, well, they can come live in my horse barn. And they were truly feral kittens, but every evening I would go down to that barn with a feather wand and I would sit in the tack room with the kittens and I'd just casually wave that feather wand. And it took several weeks, but they started to come engage with the wand. And then eventually they started to tentatively, check me out. And eventually these feral kittens actually became so tame that they were climbing onto my lap and purring. And actually now they're really not feral kittens. And I think they're going to be destined to be house cats because they have
Awesome.
just worked. We have built such a strong bond at this point. So yes, it's a really great way to build that bond.
I love
I'm so
that.
glad to hear that, Anne. And something you said also reminded me when we were talking about, how to engage them with their kibble. I had a very food motivated male Siamese cat. And I would literally take a kibble and I would throw it down the basement stairs and he'd run downstairs and he'd get the kibble and then he'd eat it and he'd come back up. And he never caught on that, but he got him got his steps in, and it was engaging for him. So he needed them. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this though, because this is such an important part of having a cat. And I myself have been guilty of not prioritizing this because the cats that I've had in the past, like I said, they were Siamese, and I mean, one of them liked to play, the other one just really had no interest in playing. I don't think he knew he was a cat, but but I think about those people that you might have heard somebody say, "Oh, my cat, it's always attacking my feet," or it stalks them from around the corner and then attacks. When I hear that usually means that they're not playing with their cat enough, or that they're not doing it right, because there is a right and a wrong way to play with your cat. So one example would be, I had a cat owner that she was describing these behaviors. And so I was asking her questions, and she said that, her favorite game to play with them was she would gather up all the small toys and then like make them in a pile on her lap, and then she'd just throw the toy at the cat. And the point of having this play session is to mimic their prey. And I don't know about you guys, but I have never seen a mouse just throw itself at the cat and lay there and say, "Catch me and eat me," right? That does not happen. So
it's raining mice.
Yeah, right. I mean, so yes, of course, that's not going to work. So what we have to do is really mimic the prey. So if we're talking about the mouse, I have seen a mouse dart from one hiding place and dart to another hiding place and then hide and get really still and maybe make a little bit of noise trying to dig into something and get safe. And that is very different from a mouse just throwing itself at you, and that will get a cat going. So I always tell people to act like you're the puppet master and the toy is acting as the mouse or whatever, or the bird, because some of them like, flying stuff versus ground stuff. And so mimic that as much as you can. So literally, putting that mouse on a string and running it down the hallway and then running it behind a pillow and then letting it wait. I've yet to meet a cat that if you do that, if you hide the toy from them and they see where it was hidden, to be fair, that they don't go run after it. It's so enticing to them to see something run and hide, because that's exactly what ground prey would do. And another suggestion I have that I came across by accident is playing with them at night, playing with the lights off. That's not something that we typically do, but some cats actually really like it, and it takes on a whole different feel to the play session. So and if you have a kitten, sometimes when Xena was younger, I would tie a mouse to a string, and I tried to tie the string to me, and if I was cleaning or whatever and I needed to burn energy with her too, and I would just drag wherever I went, and she would just continue to chase it, and then when I was ready to relax, so was she, because she was all tuckered out. So just a few other ideas. Just my other suggestion would just be rotate your toys and keep it fresh. And there's actually, I'm going to put another link in the chat from the AAFP. They have catfriendly.com, and it's got a wealth, a plethora of knowledge on how to make your cat-friendly home, and including how to play with them. So I'll throw that in the chat.
I don't think there's been any studies, but if we are mentally engaged while we're playing with our animals, I am probably going to guarantee you there is we get more out of it than even the cat would. So as we are thinking about that too. So it's
so
not
fun.
a chore.
Yeah.
It's not a chore.
It's so fun.
Absolutely. You bring up a really good point. I mean, there is a lot of evidence that spending time with our animals has health benefits for people. So I think you have a really good point there. This play is not just important for our cats, it's really important for us as well.
Very, very much so.
Okay. Cheryl, did we have any questions related to that pillar, or can we? I didn't see any, but make sure.
No, there is.
Okay.
When you're done with the pillars, if we have time, just Carol
Okay.
wants to know.
We've got a few. We've got a few.
You know, more about bringing a cat into the house for the first time, for a first-time cat owner. So let's get through the pillars first, and then maybe we can answer that question.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. So we were on pillar 4, I believe, right? So provide positive, consistent, and predictable human-cat social interaction. That's loaded.
Yeah, that is loaded. You know, I often shorten it just a little bit and say positive, predictable human interaction, just because that is something I can remember. And, you know, at the core of this is the fact that cats really thrive on routine, and we should not overlook the importance of that routine, that positive, predictable interaction that we have with our cats every day, the importance of that in their health. We know that disruption in their usual human interaction routine can cause stress or even illness in cats. There's studies where the caregiver was changed in groups of cats, and they found increased sickness behaviors simply as a result of a different caregiver caring for those cats. So we really want to set aside some consistent and quality time each day with our cats. And that can look like different things. You know, it may be play sessions sometimes, you know, one of the times, and there might be a time when it's snuggle time. The key is that we need to read our cat and see what it is they need. Do they need stimulation right now, or are they coming to us and wanting to sit in our lap and just, you know, nap with us? And, you know, in my home every night around 9 o'clock after my kids are in bed, I spend about 15 minutes just sitting quietly on a chair with my cat Smokey. And he knows 9 o'clock is special time to spend with me. So he just comes running, he leaps into my lap. And just, you know, purrs, turns on that motor and purrs. And then when he's, you know, had enough of that snuggle time, he leaves. And I think this is key to understand that cats really prefer, you know, they prefer high frequency, low intensity social interactions with people. So we want to let that cat initiate and really control that interaction and let the cat come to you. And likewise, when your cat decides the interaction is over, we got to let the cat go as well. And the other thing that, you know, somebody mentioned before we got started tonight, that, you know, they mentioned, gosh, cats are a little different than dogs in terms of how they prefer to be patted. And it's absolutely true. You know, cats usually prefer to be patted on the head or cheeks, more like stroked on the head or cheeks. Most cats do not like it if we're touching their bellies. So we want to avoid that. And we want to read our cats' body language. Yeah, you know, a lot of times if we touch the belly, we're going to get that tail going, and all of a sudden they're going to be on their back attacking our hand. So we and they do that because they really feel vulnerable if we are, you know, patting the belly. So do read your cat. If they love having their chin scratched, that's the kind of patting you should do. And if they're swatting at you when you're touching other places, then you should respect that too. So you know, but again, the key takeaway with this pillar is recognizing that the time you spend with your cat is not just, you know, a luxury. It is actually an environmental need for that cat. They need that positive, predictable interaction with you every single day to be healthy and happy. Katie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that the last pillar and this one really go hand in hand together, because cats really do thrive on routine. And I sometimes fondly think of the movie Rain Man. Like, I feel like all cats have a little bit of Rain Man in them. They're like, I need my routine to be happy. And I can appreciate that and understand that. So they need that opportunity to express their natural predatory behavior. And that has to be incorporated into your daily routine. So something to keep in mind with that is that a lot of times the cats will match the energy in the home. So what I mean by that is in the morning in my home, Jim gets up at the crack of crack and he's like tiptoeing around the house and everything is dark. And then he makes his way out and goes to work. A couple hours later, I wake up and then there's energy in the house because I got the lights on, blah, 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 doing all that. So Xena will wake up like when I wake up and she's up and at 'em and she's wanting to play. So I need to make sure that I'm playing with her during that time because that is a time of higher energy. And when I start seeing her do the zoomies or, you know, attacking things on her own, I know that that's when she wants to play. So that's a part of our routine. And then I work from home. So it's pretty low key and I imagine quite boring to live in the house with me when I'm working from home. But she matches that energy and she lounges for most of the day. However, as soon as Jim gets home, that energy, that evening routine kicks in and kicks into full gear and her energy spikes and she's zooming around the house again. So we're going to play during that time. And sometimes that means taking her outside on her, she has a harness and a leash and she likes to walk outside and, you know, watch the birds and the mice and sometimes catch the mice. But anywho, it got away, no big deal. So I need to match that energy with her as well and help her get that out of her system. And then one more time after she eats, she gets the zoomies again. So I'm briefly going to play with her. It's a pretty short session because it's like, it's close to bedtime. But I have noticed if I don't do that, she's going to burn that energy herself. And that usually involves making some kind of noise that's going to keep you up. So for Carol, you know, you were talking about how you didn't want the cat to wake you up in the morning. This will play into avoiding that, as well as the automatic feeder that you can measure the food, which was very good.
But they'll meet your routine, right? So if you're like, they will, or at least get kind of into your routine.
Yeah.
They
I
still
mean, we
push
all
in
love
the
routine,
face or,
right?
You know,
Yeah, I would add the key to not having your cat wake you up early in the morning to feed them is to never wake up early in the morning and feed them because they will quickly associate that alarm clock going off with feeding time. And then they will say, oh, this is my routine. This is what we're supposed to do.
Okay,
So
that's
just
good.
never
That's good point.
start
There you
that
go.
routine and you'll be okay.
Oh my gosh,
Great advice.
that's hysterical.
So
we
you
do
can't
have
sleep
some-
in, yeah, on the weekend.
So we do have some questions that have been coming in. So I don't know, Cheryl, if you want to pull those forward, because I do want to make sure we're conscious of time, but we're also getting everyone's questions answered.
Yeah, I think I think answered all the questions, but except for if we could just go over a little bit about bringing a cat home for the first time cat owner. I know you went through a lot with the 5 pillars, but if there's any other specifics that might be helpful for someone who hasn't owned a cat before.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, there's so much. Where to start? Well, you know, first and foremost, I would I would say, you know, do review those 5 pillars and ask yourself, do a little assessment of your home and ask yourself before you bring that cat home, before you even go looking at cats, start thinking about how you're going to set up your home environment to be successful for that cat. So think about, you know, where can we provide those safe spaces? Where can I install some cat shelves or a cat tree? Think about, you know, what's going on in my house on a daily basis? What's our normal routine? When am I going to have that time to have that interaction with the cat? What are the different smells that are present in my home? Are any of them, you know, and we're going to talk about, hopefully, if we have time, that 5th pillar, which is about smell, you know, what are any of them going to be disruptive to the cat? Are there opportunities to adjust there? So really just thinking proactively about that and then making sure that you have your home set up before you bring the cat home. And once you do bring that cat home, if you're not introducing them to any other animals, it can be a little bit simpler. Certainly it's a little more complicated when we have other pets already in the house, but it can be helpful to start them out in sort of one home territory in your house where they have all of their resources. They know they're very safe, certainly have other areas of resources also available, but let them get accustomed to that first area of the home, build their confidence, and then, continue to open up additional parts of your home. You do want to let that new cat come to you. It's very common that a cat comes home and they spend the first few days hiding. They're hiding under a cabinet, or they're hiding in the back corner of a closet or under a bed because they are terrified. They don't know that you are their new best friend. They haven't figured this out yet. They need time to learn that. And so let them hide, make sure they have safe hiding places where they can feel secure, where their resources are still available to them. And just go spend some quiet time in that room while they're hiding, and maybe use that feather wand to tempt them to come out. Don't harass them, but give them time. And within just a few days, you'll find that most cats are starting to trust you and come out of their shell and settling in very nicely. And I'm sure Katie has a ton that she can add to this with all of her experience recently adding cats to her home.
Can I ask a question to you too?
Yeah.
So Gail wanted to know if you had any objection to leaving a bowl of dry food and water available at all time.
I don't have any objection to that, particularly at first when a cat is first being introduced to a home, particularly if they're, really nervous and we just want to make sure that they have all of their resources available in one secure territory as they're starting to get settled. But in general, I prefer to meal feed cats because I think it does a couple of things. It hopefully encourages us to really carefully measure their food. And we know that, almost 60% or roughly 60% of cats in the United States are overweight or obese. And that, of course, can lead to health problems like diabetes and even a shortened lifespan in these cats. So, I think from the standpoint of preventing obesity, we do want to be careful that we are measuring food. The other thing, of course, is that, as we talked about earlier, feeding time can be a great opportunity to incorporate stimulation for the cat. So, some of those foraging activities, using some of the daily feeding allowance as a way to play a kibble toss game or use a food puzzle, that can be really important. And then the other reason that I think that meal feeding can be really helpful is that if your cat gets in that routine of meal feeding, you'll be more able to quickly figure out if there's something wrong physically with your cat, because cats, if a cat is skipping a meal, your cat normally comes, eats its meal, comes back for lunch, comes back for dinner, however many times I happen to feed 3 times a day in my home because I have the luxury of working from home and I can, and I know that cats prefer small, frequent meals. But you'll get to know that cat's eating routine really well, and you'll be able to pick up on a health problem a lot sooner if you're saying, oh gosh, you're leaving some of that food behind in your bowl, better get you checked out by the veterinarian. And then for those of you who are like, well, gosh, meal feeding seems like a lot of work, don't forget that there are now some really cool automated feeders. There are even microchip powered or microchip activated feeders. So if you have multiple cats, they can eat different types of food on a set schedule, specific amounts. Some feeders will accommodate using canned diets as well as dry diets. There are even now water resources for cats that will tell you how much your cat is drinking each day, which can also be a great way to monitor their health, particularly as they're aging. So there are lots of ways to make this, feasible in your household.
I
Well, I don't
love
know
your
about you,
chat,
but you
Dr.
brought up the
Good.
whole smell thing. Now I'm all wondering about the 5th pillar. So now I'm like, oh, good Lord. And we got people talking about the oils and smells and the chat. And so now I'm on the edge of my seat going, there's got to be a perfect pillar 5. So
yes, what a great segue for pillar 5. So, pillar 5 is that we need to provide an environment that respects the importance of the cat's sense of smell. You're thinking, well, gosh, don't we all want our sense of smell respected? But, when you think about cats and dogs, but if we're talking about cats tonight, they have a much more sensitive sense of smell than we do as people. And cats rely heavily on their sense of smell to understand and interact with the environment. So, it really is a very important sense in the cat. And we can use this sense of smell to our advantage to help our cats feel secure. So for example, when I was in the vet clinic, I used to tell my clients, bring a familiar blanket from home that has the cat scent on it already. It smells like home. And we can use that in your cat's cage to help them feel more comfortable during hospitalization. And it wasn't because I didn't have plenty of soft blankets in the clinic. It was because I wanted a blanket with that cat's scent with that cat to help them feel more secure. But by the same token, because cats really, one of the ways they see the world is through scent, it can also work against creating a cat-friendly environment when we're prioritizing our scent preferences over those of the cat. So things like perfumes or air fresheners, scented candles, or even the fragrances from some of our cleaning supplies can be strong enough that they can interrupt that cat's ability to detect things like pheromones or other natural scents that are really important signals for the cat. And this can then result in stress for the cat. So it is really important that we respect the cat's sense of smell. And one of the most obvious things that we see in many households that really does not respect the cat's sense of smell at all is scented litter. This is a really great example. And, some of these scented litters are so powerful that I can, you can smell them a couple houses away, it seems like. So think about it from the cat's perspective. This can really interfere with their ability to smell their way through their environment. The other thing that we sometimes do, in a well-meaning way, is we're a little overzealous sometimes in washing our cat's blankets or bedding. We think, well, I want a perfectly clean bed. Well, if we're washing those blankets or bedding all the time, we're removing those important scent markings that the cat has left on those blankets or bedding. And those scent markings are what help the cat identify the territory as safe. So, we want to reserve that washing of blankets for when we really need to, and not just because it's, part of what we like to do every week. That's something that I think we can all sort of look around our homes and say, is there anything here that maybe isn't respecting my cat's sense of smell?
I feel like I should be a cat owner because I hate the smell of candles. I hate perfume. I hate anything with any odor. And I'm like, me and a cat would get along great.
Yes.
You would. You need a cat, Catherine.
I need a cat again. I do. Awesome. Okay, we're going to turn it over to Shannon because we are quickly running out of time.
Okay, yeah, thank you everyone for bearing with us. I know, we could talk about this again forever, but that was really good. So I will keep this short for our closing toast. I just have a quote from Sigmund Freud that says, "Time spent with cats is never wasted." So cheers.
Cheers to that.